All right. So thanks everybody for joining our second digital equity planning workshop. Um, Today we are going to focus on a discussion around building strong and inclusive digital equity planning teams and talk about the development of digital equity asset inventories and how those mesh together. And so I'm Dustin Loop, project director for broadband and digital equity at WSU Extension. Um, uh, Sabrina Roach, our digital equity lead, is having some connectivity issues today. There have been some power and network issues where she lives. So hopefully she'll join. But in the meantime, I will facilitate here and just wanted to thank you all for joining here. Just to have an idea of what to expect. We'll start off with a discussion about building those teams and reaching out to stakeholders and bringing them to the table. Like I mentioned, talk a little bit about building those digital equity asset inventories, and we'll hear a little bit from Learn, Design, Apply on some of the tools that they've set up to facilitate that data collection effort and put that in the context of that community outreach as well. And then we'll take some time toward the end of this call to have breakout rooms just to share in smaller groups any challenges, successes, or just like questions or topics that you would like to see us cover in these workshops moving forward. We have some ideas of things that we think will be useful to cover, but certainly want to hear from you all what you would like to see us cover and where you would like to see us spend more energy and time. And so we'll kick off here, just talk a little bit about building those inclusive digital equity action planning teams and some strategies to go about that, and want to call on some of us who have already engaged in some of these planning efforts and have experience with developing broadband action teams and reaching out to stakeholders, and then work from there. So we're going to start off with Kayla Wells-Yoakum, who is with WSU Extension on this project and has been working with the Okanagan Broadband Action Team for quite some time, and has a lot of great experience to share. So Kayla, why don't you take it and talk us through some things.
Thank you for that, Dustin. Good afternoon, everybody. Nice to see 73 people on this workshop. This is absolutely fantastic. So I was asked to share a short bit about what we've been doing in Okanagan County with our broadband action team in trying to fulfill the requirements of our digital equity planning. And we actually just had a meeting with our team yesterday, and we were talking specifically about that. And what, some of the tips that I would have for everyone on this call is to think about the people in your communities, county, reservation, wherever you are calling in from, whatever BAT team that you sit on or community team that you sit on. Think about the organizations and the people in your area who work with the covered populations, and strategically invite those people to have a seat on the team, right? Like, we can't reach the populations if we're not reaching out to the people who serve them. So while we may not, be inviting the specific populations themselves to the team, we sure are going to find those community members, those organizations that work with those folks, and send them an invite. And we have found in Okanagan and in the newly formed Chelan County Broadband Action Team that I'm helping to support, that it takes more than just the blanket email that goes out to 200 people to get people to sit at the table, right? It takes a personal touch. There's, people who need to reach out to people so that they know that their invite means something, and so that they know that they truly are wanted and needed on the team and have a voice in the process. So that's what we have been doing in Okanagan. That's what we are starting to do in Chelan County. And the more personal the email can be, the phone call, the knocking on doors, the having personal one-on-one meetings with people, the more inclined those folks feel to come to the table, to serve on the team, and to help build those plans. Dustin, back to you.
Awesome. Thanks for that, Kayla. Want to turn next to Deborah Hanson, who I think is one of our longest standing BAT organizers with the Stevens County Broadband Action Team. And Deborah, you're not showing up on my screen, but I believe you're here. So I think there's just too many people in the room, and would love to hear from you on some of your experience bringing stakeholders to the table and making sure that a wide range of perspectives are involved in the conversations, and how you're thinking about that, not just in the work around the broadband, but in the development of the digital equity action plans.
Great, happy to, can you hear me? Okay, perfect. Happy to speak. And I'm gonna sound a little bit like the stories that Kayla just said, because it's very similar to the work that we do in Stevens County. We've had a BAT team that's been working since about 2016 with both the fiber kind of builder side and the digital equity side. Our Libraries of Stevens County, Amanda Six, has been a founding member since the beginning. So we've always talked about digital equity and fiber and access. The way we operate our BAT team isn't going to change very much for the next 6 months as we work to figure out this plan. Everybody is invited to the table to come to meetings. We actually have a rule that there's no guilt if you can't come, because everybody has very busy lives and busy work schedules. And what I try to do is carry the threads back and forth through groups. And if I see something that needs to happen off the meeting or in another way, then I can connect some of those dots. And we all kind of operate that way, which is really fun. And I'll give you an example. This morning we had a strategy meeting about filling out the plan with the Spokane tribe, and got started talking about how do we address and work with the incarcerated or recently incarcerated group of folks. We've never talked about that specifically. I haven't, but the library director, Amanda, had, and started talking to the tribe. And then all of a sudden they're having a meeting later to talk about it, and we'll bring it back. So I would encourage you all to think that having these meetings with all of these people in an hour and a half session may not happen. They might happen off to the side and in different ways, and then all come back together. There's so many people that are doing good work around this space that what I want to do, I'm just going to speak for myself, is have a good understanding about who's doing that work and how can we support them or bring them together or work with this so that the state can understand what our issues are here in Stevens County and the Spokane tribe. But then we have a better understanding so we can work on it as we go farther down the way. So that's how I do it. Is that what you meant, Dustin?
Yeah, yep, definitely.
Okay.
So really appreciate providing that context, and just want to I guess open it up quickly and see if there are any initial questions or thoughts on this. or any other BAT leaders that we didn't call on specifically that might want to jump in and share perspectives from your counties, or any tribal leaders that have been pulling together digital equity plans that might want to share. Not to put anyone on the spot, but a little bit of an open floor here.
I have another thought while everyone's thinking. I'm thrilled to have these kinds of meetings where I see people that are working on this. And I also really appreciate that there are many different ways to approach this, both in terms of organization of the planning groups, the ways that the tribes are looking at it, the ways that the BATs work, what the regions look like. There's no cookie cutter answer to any of this. But in all the 23 years I've been doing this, I've never seen this kind of effort and collegiality and working together and making connections and supporting this in such a great way that I'm really excited about the future as we move forward, because these relationships and ideas and concepts that we're sharing are going to pay out for all of us down the way. So I appreciate all of you, and knowing that you all operate differently than we do, or may.
Yeah, thanks for that, Deborah. And maybe I'll just call out, not to put anybody, I'm not putting anyone on the spot. I'm just gonna share some experience. Want to highlight, as Kayla mentioned, some of the work that was done in Chelan County, who going into this process had local planning efforts and had local plans that have been developed that are great, but hadn't pulled together as a broadband action team. And in having those discussions and moving forward with pulling together, that group just had a kickoff meeting. Feels like it was yesterday. Might have been yesterday. I lose track of time sometimes. In the lead up to that, we had worked, and they pulled together a list that outlined a bunch of different stakeholders and what perspectives they were bringing, and what sectors and populations they work with, and we're able to look at that and identify some gaps and get some emails out and some follow-ups. And the result was that there was a really well-rounded group present for a discussion that I'm sure is going to yield a great plan for Chelan County. So I think the takeaway from that is just starting with listing out some people and working to identify the gaps from there. You don't need to have a perfect list before you start reaching out. Just starting the outreach is a good step. And I see a few hands have shot up in this time, so we'll go to Arian and then Will to share some experience.
Hi there. I actually wanted to just ask a question to the group. We're finding, I would say, a new opportunity that just in the last week has surfaced in, I'd say, the greater Spokane region. And the reason why it's going beyond the Spokane BAT is because it involves another quasi-state entity that other counties are a part of. I had our individual that oversees the Spokane County Community Services Department tell me that their new HUD plan, consolidated plan, now had a broadband requirement. And so what we had now is a group that for decades and decades has been overseeing the digital equity and service providers that now is needing to intersect this space. And obviously I'm like, whoo, cool, come please, join this BAT. They also intersect with what is called our Continuum of Care Board, which is basically the populations. And so we're trying to weave something that's very established so that they can use, we can use their synergies. And to be quite frank, they don't feel someone is stepping on their toes, because there's a lot of stuff already going on. And similarly, we have a lot of interaction with what's called our Behavioral Health Administrative Service Office, our BHASO, that since about 2018 has been getting broadband funds to go into the rural aspects of our area for telehealth and behavioral health, and they didn't know what to do with it. So we're trying to figure out, in addition to the let's get directly to people on the ground that you're talking about? How do we braid in well groups that are really credible, number one, and established, number two, in the more social services arena, so that they can maybe help us fast track. So I was just that's been a new thing that's evolved over the last week for us. And I was just kind of curious whether it's east, west, urban, rural, if that's something that's come up for other folks.
Yeah, thanks for that. And would love to hear from anybody if they have thoughts, but just I mean, it's obviously unique in terms of who's involved and what you're working with, Arian, but I think what we're seeing just in these planning processes in general is some entities have been taking on certain components of the plans or planning efforts. So it's not that this work hasn't been done, it just hasn't been brought into a group that's coordinating. And so what that will look like is a little bit different, but it's a very good point to make sure that you're in this process identifying who is doing that work, and you don't want to duplicate efforts that people have already done, and you want to create strong partnerships rather than issues where it feels like others are stepping on each other's toes. And you know, obviously can't speak directly to your situation, but I think as you navigate through that, I would definitely love to hear from you on and maybe in one of these sessions, like how you've navigated that, and so others can kind of draw experience from that as well. Will?
Thanks, Dustin. Hi, everyone. So I'm here in this meeting kind of on behalf of the adult education programs in 34 community and technical colleges and 5 community-based organizations. And I would imagine that some of those folks are already at the table at some of these regional meetings where they've been part of that information sharing. But we learned of these more recently in the state office. And I think what would be great is if there's a list of regional leaders that's kind of in a centralized, if you have a landing page you could point us to, so that we can kind of put the blast out to our system and make sure that folks are getting connected across the state. Because we agree that these planning efforts are key, and we'd love for our providers to be able to represent the students that they serve and are trying to serve, and see how we can be part of the solution.
Yeah, thanks for that, Will. I'm glad that you're here. We do have a list. I will say there are some that have clearly identified lead contacts. One of the reasons that we haven't published it yet is we don't want to accidentally publish something that identifies the wrong person as broadband action team lead and put their contact information out there and get flooded by email. So what I can do, and this offer goes to anyone on this call, is while we work on finalizing the version that gets published for outreach, we can send you a list of the emails for those that are clearly confirmed as the key points of contact for the broadband action teams. And for those that don't have that, we have regional emails that can help route those inquiries based on what region we're in or what region they're in. And those regions are identified in the workbook, as well as the website that Kayla just dropped the link into the chat for. And I also see that some connectivity issues have been resolved, and wanted to welcome Sabrina, our digital equity lead, to the discussion.
Hello. You might have heard that we had some lightning strikes in Burien last night. A lot of power went down. So great to see you all. Have the folks from Learn Design Apply gone yet? Where are we in the agenda? This is a great and I really love that what you're all what you're all talking about, especially that Ariane brought to the table all of the different stakeholders and what they are up to. Yes, Dustin.
Yeah, so we are kind of just wrapping up that first section on just building inclusive teams, and then I was about to pivot seamlessly to learn, design, apply. So wanted to tee up the asset inventory processes here. I really am excited about this component of the digital equity planning process for a few reasons. And for those of you that maybe haven't been able to review the workbook and aren't necessarily familiar with what a digital equity asset inventory is, essentially it is the collection and aggregation of the various resources, tools, programs, services that are available to support digital equity efforts around adoption, use, and application of the internet. And that's really going to be a key component of developing these local digital equity action plans, because it helps identify what is already in place to address some of those needs that are identified and the gaps that are in place. And hopefully the outcome of these digital equity asset inventories is that not only do you have a spreadsheet or a list of programs that are available, but also a tool that can serve as a bit of a resource that anyone can access and can help provide a directory to point people in the right direction. If somebody comes into the library and is expressing that they would like to find resources for access to affordable devices, knowing who those service providers are at the state level and at the local level is really helpful. And having that directory handy for all of those throughout the community can help get people routed to the right place. And so that's one thing really that I think is really cool about these digital equity asset inventory building processes. And I also think it's really helpful in engaging community members and stakeholders and bringing them to the table, because a lot of times you throw out a term like digital equity and people are like, what is that? I don't do that. But the reality is that many of them actually do that because digital equity touches so many aspects of our life now. And I think a lot of that work goes unrecognized because it's done in a lot of cases above and beyond the defined job duties or institutional duties, sometimes reaching those health outcomes or education outcomes or workforce economic development outcomes require going above and beyond and making sure that people have access to the tools and the skills and the capacity necessary to take advantage of those resources. And so this is an opportunity to reach out, recognize the work that these stakeholders are putting into a digital equity in your community, and also helping them realize why it's important for them to be at the table, and that they are actually already involved and contributing to this ecosystem, and that the ecosystem as a whole will be stronger and more cohesive when all of these pieces are coordinating and working together. And so with that, wanted to throw it to Brooke McCallum with Learn, Design, Apply to show some of the tools that we will have available to support the collection of the digital equity asset inventory data.
Thanks, Dustin. Hi, everyone. I'm Brooke, and I am one of the project managers for this whole planning program. And one of the things that my colleague Annie and I have been working on is figuring out, okay, how do we compile all this information and get all this information? And so we created Google Forms. Let me do a screen share here. Can you all see this? Great.
Yep.
So thank you. So basically, this is, if you've seen the workbook, it's essentially the questions taken from the workbook. And I think Dustin even added a few more in here to get just really comprehensive information. But all of the questions that you need to find out are going to be in this form. And what's really nice is you can, oh, and let me take a step back. These forms, every BAT and every tribe will have access to a templated version of this form. And every BAT and tribe has a folder that this form will be in. And that's owned by the BAT leader and your regional coordinator. So not everyone in the BAT or in the tribe is going to have access to it necessarily, unless they need it. But that's who will be owning this. And then and so then this form can be sent out to the different community institutions like Dustin was talking about, and they can just go through and fill out all of the questions. And what's really nice is then once they do that, those answers go into the Google Drive folder. So this is just a generic example folder, but this will get populated into this digital equity asset inventory form folder. And then from there, it'll go into the digital equity asset inventory sheet. So this is what the sheet will look like. And in here, Dustin filled out a sample, so you can see his name in there, but everything will get auto-populated into here. And so then you'll have all that data and be able to work with it from there. And the way it works is you can send the form out in the form of a link. So you can hyperlink it into an email. And you can also print it if people can't fill it out online, because we obviously know digital equity, some people don't have the ability to do that. So you can print it out and have them send it in, and we can upload it manually. And another option too is if you have a group leader who wants to take initiative and call these different institutions and different people, they can be on the phone with them and fill it out on their behalf for them. That's another option to make it accessible. So that's essentially the form. I don't know, Dustin, if you want to go through any of the questions and why you decided to put them there, but in terms of the logistics of the form, does anyone have any specific questions or concerns? I'll take that as a no, unless I'm not sure if I can see the chat here. Let me see. Yeah, so Dustin, do you want to go into the questions on here, or?
Happy to quickly run through them. We don't need to spend too much time on it, but maybe if you just wanted to scroll through the form here down a little bit further. So this lists off the covered populations here as defined in the Federal Digital Equity Act are also identified as underserved populations in Washington State's Digital Equity Act. And part of building these digital equity asset inventories, in addition to knowing what services are available, want to know and ensure that they are being made available to all of the covered populations. And sometimes that will look different. For English language learners, they may require a different form of support than others, and specific approaches might work well for aging individuals. So recognize that some of these services may just be provided generally as well, and that's okay. We can kind of scroll down from here, Brooke. So one thing we want to know as different organizations are filling this out is, whether there is a formal institutional digital equity plan. I know, if we're talking about community colleges, for example, a lot of them are working on developing digital equity plans that I've seen. And so it's helpful to know when those plans are in place, or if there are formally identified digital equity priorities within an organization. And that gets to a number of things, but it helps understand where some of those efforts are recognized and formally prioritized, or where some of that work might still be happening, but like I said earlier, maybe unrecognized or above and beyond the duties. And then you can scroll down a little bit from there and just keep going. And I think section 6 might be the one we want. Yeah, so this just shows different types of digital equity assets that organizations can identify that they provide. And that ranges from digital navigator programs to newsletters that can help share digital equity information. Mobile hotspot or device lending programs, affordable device programs. There's a whole range of that, and if it's not captured in this list, can always add it under other as well. So I don't think we need to go into too much more detail than that, Brooke. Just wanted to make sure that folks had a concrete understanding of how this is structured, and that there are tools in place to make sure that everyone knows that you don't have to take 35 different filled out PDFs and copy and paste them into spreadsheets, and hopefully that save you a little bit of effort on that end. Are there any questions at this point? Deborah?
Yeah, so I'm a little confused about the digital equity plans and if they exist. Are we expecting individual organizations to have them, or
Yes.
I've never seen one.
So some community colleges, K-12 schools, others might already have digital equity plans in place, or they may have digital equity priorities established in a larger strategic document. And we want the opportunity for them to share that planning so that it can be incorporated into the larger team's plan.
Okay, so could I ask maybe the group if other counties or tribes have digital equity plans? I've seen a lot of,
So-
fiber builds and things like that, but
So this is the form that would be sent from the broadband action team out to different stakeholders throughout the
Okay.
community. Not necessarily, I mean, the county will likely fill it out as well. But that would be one entry into the digital equity asset inventory. There would also be responses from libraries and schools, municipalities, healthcare providers, philanthropic organizations, any entity throughout the community that's providing digital equity services or has a role.
okay. And then are we expecting to look through those and cull that information into a form, or are we just saying, yes, there's a plan? I'm just looking for my action step when let's say the school says, yes, we have a digital equity plan. Do I just upload that plan, or am I pulling information out of that plan to put into the form? I know it's detailed, but I'm just curious.
That I guess recommendation, and Sabrina, feel free to jump in here wherever. But in collecting that digital equity plan, it's an opportunity. I would recommend engaging with that school if they have a digital equity plan to understand what components of it can be incorporated into the larger community plan. And so I think it's through that. This is really an exercise in engagement and outreach, as well as building inventories. So would really look at that as an opportunity to identify a stakeholder that has clearly a formally identified interest in digital equity, and bring them into the group and have conversations around how their plan fits into a larger community-wide plan.
Okay, great. Thank you. That helps immensely.
Dustin, this is Frank.
Hey, Frank, go ahead.
Yeah, so the digital equity plan asset inventory that we were just looking at, is that a single collection point then for all counties to put all this information into, or are we each expected to develop our own asset inventory and collect information at our local level?
Brooke, do you want to field that one?
Will you repeat the question? I'm sorry, I missed that.
Oh, sure. The digital equity plan asset inventory form that we were looking at, is that a single collection point for all counties to feed information into, or do we each get our own template that we can collect our own information for our own county, or can we just slice and dice it down to the individual county level if it's a single collection point?
It's every county will have, and every community and every tribe will have their own. So it's not going to be the giant spreadsheet with everybody's responses in it, if that's what you're meaning. Is that
It is.
Answer your question? Okay, yeah. So you'll have your own template. It's just your counties, and all that information will be in there just for you.
Well, how is that deployed to us in the field? Is this something that's going to be sent to each individual BAT team and tribe?
Yes. So there's been a couple kickoff meetings with some BATs, and it'll be then some BATs already have them, and then some will be getting them, and it's really either the regional coordinator or myself or Annie on the calls, figuring out who the point of contact person is, and then we send all that information over so that they have it. But as we keep going along and more regional coordinators are involved, will also be, they'll be the ones that are kind of the owners of it.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, Brooke, and thanks, Frank. So want to pivot here quickly, hand it off to Sabrina to lead us into a quick round of breakout rooms and kind of tee that up.
Thanks, Dustin. Okay, so I think there's 67, 70 of you. So I'm thinking that's maybe 10 breakout rooms, 7 folks to have a chat. We wanted it on the smaller side, just an opportunity for folks to use their vocal cords if they wanted to with this. And also when we do the share out after about 10 minutes, if you don't want to speak your share out, but you have something to say, we have a collaborative note-taking document that we will share with you. I don't think you have the link for that yet. And I think I have adequately taken all of the privacy protections off the document so that you can see it. So this is just an opportunity to get a sense of what your challenges are right now if there are any successes that you're excited about, questions, recommendations, this will help us collect and assess maybe a change of course with the kinds of resources that we are offering you. So please feel free to make a note of anything you think might be useful. Looks like Dustin is still creating little rooms for you all to.
Oh, I'm ready whenever.
Oh, you are, you're ready. All right. All right. So I'm just gonna post here in the chat just what I said, but with the link to the collaborative notes and also topic suggestions. That's another way you can give us some input. Oh, Kayla has already done this. Thank you, Kayla.
Great. So shall we
Go for it.
enter the breakout void? What's backdrop you got there, Brian?
What's that, Dustin?
Oh, I just said nice backdrop you got there.
Oh, okay. Just looking out towards the river. Dustin, are you going to be in our meeting with that design company? I think it's what, Thursday?
I'll try to make it.
Okay.
If not, Nick will be there for sure, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll be there.
Hey, the chat disappeared. Dang it, I hate it when that happens.
I can send around the chat to everyone.
That would be awesome. Thank you,
'Cause
Dustin.
Since I didn't leave, I have the full chat.
Okay.
I learned really useful things. Oh, it's 3 o'clock.
Yeah, Sabrina, wrap us up.
All right, well, everyone, thanks for coming. We'll just put some things in the chat here. Next week I believe we've got Emily Grossman, who is Washington State's new digital equity manager of a unit that is not named yet. We'll figure it all out, but she's really great. She has a deep background in social services and was Commerce's liaison on housing, the governor's recent effort. So she understands structurally where things are and holds a lot of relationships. I think you'll love getting to know her. Dustin, anything I'm blanking on?
No, just really appreciate everyone's time. If you, for whatever reason, were not able to get into the Google document to contribute your notes, or if there are things that you would like to get added to our meeting notes that go out, please feel free to just email those to us. And in the follow-up email, we'll send out a form where you can recommend any future topics that you would like to see discussed. So we can make sure that we're making these as useful as possible for you all. So thank you all, and we'll see you next week, if not before then for many of you.